Hi everyone, it's Saoirse, and today I'm going to talk about Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. Now everybody's probably heard about this book. I knew about it forever, and actually read a book called Eat, Pray, Love Made Me Do It, which was a collection of essays by people who had changed their lives drastically after reading this book. And it's funny that I read that before I read the actual book. But yeah, it was only a matter of time before I read this. And especially as somebody who likes to do their own travel writing, I wanted to see what a super successful travel memoir looks like, considering this was turned into a movie. It's a number one New York Times bestseller, all that. It's very successful. And so let me start off with saying some things I didn't love, and you'll notice that I'm never really that harsh in critiques because as a writer, I know how horrible it is to receive bad criticism, so I try to keep it as positive as I can, focus on the things that I liked about it. But as a bestseller, the only issues I had with this are that I didn't feel like there was enough background or honesty in it to make me really, really care about Liz, because compared to At Home in the World by Joyce Maynard, which I talked about a couple videos ago, which was so brutally honest, this really didn't feel genuine or honest in a lot of it. It felt like she wanted to gloss over a lot of things, like the whole reason that she was doing this journey, which the point of the book is she spends 4 months in Italy, 4 months in India, and 4 months in Bali after she gets a very messy, upsetting divorce. But she says in the beginning, I'm not going to talk about why we got divorced. I'm not going to get into our specific issues together. She just tells us she left him and immediately had another boyfriend that she was crazy about, and that relationship seemed to devastate her even more than the husband. So right away, and I know this might be wrong of me, but I lose sympathy for somebody when they're not the one who got dumped. Because, it really sucks being dumped. So yeah, I have more sympathy for people when they're on the other end of it, which was what was hard for me with reading Wild, because it was the same thing as this. She left him, and in Wild there was even that whole infidelity thing, and yeah, I know people have their reasons. But yeah, personally I can't relate. So I would relate more if she was the one that got left. So yeah, maybe that's just a personal thing. It's hard for me to feel that bad for her, but at the same time, I'm someone who firmly believes that you are all of us are entitled to our sorrow, and it doesn't matter if you are rich or poor or privileged or not, you're allowed to be sad. Okay, so people criticizing this book saying, oh, this rich white lady, she doesn't have any reason to complain about anything. Look at this amazing journey she got to have. Well, she got to because she was getting paid to write about it. She's a writer, so that's what she does. And she's super lucky that she got to do that. Good for her. I think that's awesome. She got to have this journey where she discovered herself. Self-discovery journey, that's what I meant to say. So, but it did feel like a lot of the language was kind of cliche. Definitely not my favorite writing style. I'll say that. I can see why it worked for so many people. Definitely. I get why a lot of people loved it. But for me, I'm more into introspective, poetic writing, not so much oh my god, can you believe this happened? And it also felt kind of she didn't tell us enough why she was so devastated. I needed more to know, why this journey needed to happen. Where was she told us, how devastated she was, but she didn't give us enough on why, and that's what I'm missing here. That's all I'll say. It felt a little bit disjointed because there's the 3 sections. So she talks about Italy first, and then, she has the book sectioned out like this. Book 2, India, and then the 3rd one is Bali. And it felt like once you left one of them, it really didn't have that much correlation with the rest of the book. It kind of felt like a totally different story, and I would have liked to see more just more things that tied it all together, I guess. But that comes from me being an English major and like always trying to weave in my point throughout an entire paper. And I do that with my novels too. So what I did like about this was, I mean, it was fun to like get to travel with her and see the world through her eyes, and especially through the eyes of somebody who's having this journey of self-discovery. Because I think that self-discovery is so essential to our existence. It is one of the most important things that we can do. Please take the time to get to know yourself. You know, stop being afraid of your own company. Stop being afraid of being alone. As somebody who has solo traveled quite a bit, it is so worth it, and I love that she did that. Yeah. I liked that she dedicated this whole year of her life to herself and didn't want a romantic partner. Like, she definitely had withdrawals and stuff and was thinking about her ex and all that, which is totally natural, but she did really well with keeping herself apart from that and really focusing on, you know, first her eating in Italy, and then her journey for finding God, but not really, like, more of just spirituality, finding a connection, and then love. In the end, I guess I think of that as self-love, but I like that she found that self-love before allowing a romantic partner into her life near the end of the book, which I don't think is that much of a spoiler, because I think that's kind of, everybody knows that, that happens in Bali. But yeah, I respected that, the whole self-love thing. I couldn't relate that much to the spiritual journey. Like, I love the idea of meditation. I'm totally into that. I would do that, but I can't relate as much to the, like, needing to put a label on something like a god. I like the idea of finding the strength within yourself to keep you going and realizing that you are all you need. I don't feel the need to search outside for that. But everybody's different. Everybody's got their own thing that keeps them going. So I could definitely relate to the eating part. I love eating. I love pasta. I love Italy. I've been to Italy and I've made pasta there in a pasta making class on a rooftop in Rome. That's a whole other story. But yeah, they do food very well there. Okay, so I wanted to look at some quotes and talk about them. First we have, okay, she's talking about like her failures in relationships, how this happens to her, and I just really related to this. She says, "The object of your adoration has now become repulsed by you. He looks at you like you're someone he's never met before, much less someone he once loved with high passion. The irony is you can hardly blame him. I mean, check yourself out. You're a pathetic mess, unrecognizable even to your own eyes." Been there. A lot of the stuff she said about relationships was pretty relatable and sad. Also related to this, "I'm bad, or rather lazy, at researching a place before I travel, tending just to show up and see what happens. When you travel this way, what typically happens is that you end up spending a lot of time standing in the middle of the train station feeling confused, or dropping way too much money on hotels because you don't know better." Yeah, I've done that. I planned this trip to Ireland where I had been like staying in England for a while, and I said, I'm just gonna pop on over to Ireland for a week, just with one outfit on and a little backpack. And I booked all my places that I was gonna stay, but then like had no plan for what I was gonna do when I was in all those different cities and villages. So I ended up getting there and going, what do I do? Which meant that like most of the time I just spent getting to places and not actually being present in them. So yeah, I need to get better about planning my travels. But I thought it was a little odd that she was getting paid to do this book and she didn't plan better. That was interesting. Oh, I liked this. She says, "I tried so hard to fight the endless sobbing. I remember asking myself one night while I was curled up in the same old corner of my same old couch in tears yet again, over the same old repetition of sorrowful thoughts. Is there anything about this scene you can change, Liz? And all I could think to do was stand up while still sobbing and try to balance on one foot in the middle of my living room, just to prove that while I couldn't stop the tears or change my dismal interior dialogue, I was not yet totally out of control. At least I could cry hysterically while balanced on one foot. Hey, it was a start. I just really like that, because I've totally been there where you just feel like you are never going to stop crying or being completely depressed. And to take yourself out of that and just do something a little bit weird, like balancing on one foot, you go, well, look, I can do that. At least I can do that. Like, I'm not going to stop crying ever, but I can do this weird thing. I like the idea of, like, just changing your routine a little bit. Shaking things up. What else do we have here? Well, we're skipping ahead quite a bit. Going into India. See, a lot of this was relatable. I didn't super love the writing style, but she says the other problem with this is, okay, in India, she's spending a lot of time meditating, like silent for hours every day, and it's a big struggle. And I can totally imagine that, like, fighting with your brain like that and just being in silence, that's gotta be really, really tough at first. Okay, she says the other problem with all this swinging through the vines of thought is that you are never where you are. You are always digging in the past or poking at the future, but rarely do you rest in this moment. It's something like the habit of my dear friend Susan, who, whenever she sees a beautiful place, exclaims in near panic, "It's so beautiful here. I want to come back here someday." And it takes all of my persuasive powers to try to convince her that she is already here. If you're looking for a union with the divine, this kind of forward-backward whirling is a problem. Okay, so even if you're not looking for a union with the divine, it is a problem, because you can't be present when you're doing that. And I find myself doing that all the time. I go somewhere and I think, I'm going to come back here, or one day I'm going to be in this situation and things are going to be so great. Well, why don't I just focus on how great things are right now? Like, my cat's right here. Even though she interrupts me, I love her. And I've got all these books and have a lot to be grateful for, and I'm doing a lot better, I think, at living in the moment, but it's always a work in progress. And excuse me if I don't sound so great. I ran a half marathon yesterday at Disney, and it pretty much wrecked me, and I got, like, real sick right after. I just feel, like, awful in every way, every symptom you can imagine. Certainly not feeling too gorgeous right now. So, but I'm proud of myself. See, you always gotta do things that challenge you, you know, in every way, mentally, physically, all of it. Related to this too. She says, she's talking about when she was a kid and turning from single digits to double digits. That shocked me into a genuine existential panic, usually reserved for people turning 50. I remember thinking that life was passing me by so fast. It seemed like only yesterday I was in kindergarten, and here I was about to turn 10. Soon I would be a teenager, then middle-aged, then elderly, then dead. And everyone else was aging in hyperspeed too. Everybody was going to be dead soon. My parents would die, my friends would die, my cat would die, my older sister was almost in high school already. I could remember her going off to first grade only moments ago, it seemed, in her little knee socks, and now she was in high school? Obviously, it wouldn't be long before she was dead. What was the point of all this? Definitely sounds like my train of thought as a kid, and sometimes now. And it would be so wonderful to know what it's like to not be somebody like that thinks about that constantly. Especially as a child, it's so terrible being a child and feeling like you don't have the innocence of childhood or the fun of childhood because you're thinking about your mortality when you are less than 10 years old. It's ridiculous. If you guys are like me out there, let me know. She says, from that place of meditation, I found the answer. You can finish the business yourself, from within yourself. It's not only possible, it's essential. And I will preach this all the time. You have the power to help yourself. That does not mean don't seek help when you need it. Absolutely do that. But you can't always believe that there's going to be something or someone that will save you. you have it within yourself. You have this strength that you don't even know you have, and maybe because you haven't pushed yourself or challenged yourself because you're scared, and I totally get that. I used to be that way. But a few years ago, I just kind of stopped caring because everything kind of fell apart, and I thought, well, why don't I just do whatever I want? Come here, baby. And at a certain point, you gotta do that. Oops. There she goes. Yeah, it's up to you. I feel so bad for people who really don't like being by themselves. Because I get it, like, sometimes loneliness is so scary, and especially if you have depression like me, and you're stuck in that place, and you are like, I'm going to be alone forever, and nobody gets me, and I can't connect to other humans, and I never will. That is terrifying. But then sometimes I absolutely love being alone, and I enjoy my company. Excuse me. Okay, look, she's not even gonna hold still. Ow! Oh, she got her claws in me. Oh, she's got her claws in me bad. Okay. Let's move on. Moving, skipping far ahead here. Okay, she's in Bali now, and she's talking to this friend that she made there. And the friend says, "Why does suffering never end?" She wasn't crying, merely posing a simple, unanswerable, and weary question. Why must everything be repeat and repeat, never finish, never resting? You work so hard one day, but the next day you must only work again. You eat, but the next day you are already hungry. You find love, then love go away. You are born with nothing, no watch, no t-shirt. You work hard, then you die with nothing, no watch, no t-shirt. You are young, then you are old. No matter how hard you work, you cannot stop getting old. I relate to that, like just never knowing what is the point. What is the point of all this that we're doing? And at a certain point in your life, you just got to accept, well, there isn't one. And all we can do is enjoy the time that we have. That's almost a quote from Lord of the Rings. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, a few more. I have a history of making decisions very quickly about men. I have always fallen in love fast and without measuring risks. I have a tendency not only to see the best in everyone, but to assume that everyone is emotionally capable of reaching his highest potential. I have fallen in love more times than I care to count with the highest potential of a man, rather than with the man himself, and then I have hung on to the relationship for a long time, sometimes far too long, waiting for the man to ascend to his own greatness. Many times in romance, I have been a victim of my own optimism. We'll just leave you with that. Okay. I just thought this was really interesting. See, the things that I liked about this book were when she threw in cultural stuff, like interesting facts about the places, the places that she visited. I'm real tired. This is how I ended up participating in the blessing of a baby who had reached the age of 6 months and who was now ready to touch the earth for the first time. The Balinese don't let their children touch the ground for the first 6 months of life, because newborn babies are considered to be gods sent straight from heaven, and you wouldn't let a god crawl around on the floor with all the toenail clippings and cigarette butts. So Balinese babies are carried for those first 6 months, revered as minor deities. If a baby dies before it is 6 months old, it is given a special cremation ceremony, and the ashes are not placed in a human cemetery, because this being was never human. It was only ever a god. But if the baby lives to 6 months, then a big ceremony is held, and the child's feet are allowed to touch the earth at last, and Junior is welcomed to the human race. That was just super interesting to me. Okay, I like these parts that she puts in about, like, I mean, sometimes it's, like, repetitive, but I like when she talks about the struggles that she has when she's meditating or just sitting with her thoughts. She says, "Then I said to my mind, show me your anger now. One by one, my life's every incident of anger rose and made itself known. Every injustice, every betrayal, every loss, every rage, I saw them all one by one, and I acknowledged their existence. I felt each piece of anger completely as if it were happening for the first time, and then I would say, come into my heart now. You can rest there. It's safe now. It's over. I love you." This went on for hours, and I swung between these mighty poles of opposite feelings, experiencing the anger thoroughly for one bone-rattling moment, and then experiencing a total coolness, as the anger entered my heart, as if through a door, laid itself down, curled up against its brothers, and gave up fighting. That is one thing I really like about this book. She's not afraid to talk about her struggle with her own thoughts, and she admits that she wants control, and it's really hard to relinquish control and let yourself feel all these things that you're afraid of feeling. Okay, last one. I think about the woman I've become lately, about the life that I am now living, and about how much I always wanted to be this person and live this life, liberated from the farce of pretending to be anyone other than myself. I think of everything I endured before getting here and wonder if it was me. I mean this happy and balanced me who is now dozing on the deck of this small Indonesian fishing boat, who pulled the other, younger, more confused and more struggling me forward during all those hard years. The younger me was the acorn full of potential, but it was the older me, the already existent oak, who was saying the whole time, yes, grow, change, evolve, come and meet me here, where I already exist in wholeness and maturity. I need you to grow into me. And maybe it was this present and fully actualized me who was hovering 4 years ago over that young, married, sobbing girl on the bathroom floor. And maybe it was this me who whispered lovingly into that desperate girl's ears, "Go back to bed, Liz," knowing already that everything would be okay, that everything would eventually bring us together here, right to this moment, where I was always waiting in peace and contentment, always waiting for her to arrive and join me. I just think that's a really beautiful sentiment, that the future you is waiting for the past you to catch up and realize that everything is going to be okay, that you just have to get there, and you've got to enjoy the journey too. You've got to accept the journey, and yeah, that's what this book is, really. It's a journey, but it's not about physically traveling. It's about what's in here. Well, it's both, but I like when a book combines those things. Yeah, I do like travel writing when it's just observational, here's where I went, but I also really like when an author can tell us why this journey meant something to them, because I think that's really important, and that's the way that I write about my travels. So I think that's all I'm going to say about that. If you have any thoughts, let me know. I have to go watch the movie now because I don't think I've ever seen it. And that's always fun, watching the movie after you read the book. So next time, I'm going to talk about Silence in the Age of Noise, which was a very quick little read. So we'll get to that next time. And thank you for watching and putting up with my probably weird sounding voice, because I just feel super ill at the moment. Does everybody feel like this after they run 13.1 miles? Let me know. See you guys next time. Bye.